What if everything you thought was trash was actually a masterpiece in disguise? In this video, you're about to witness 25 backyard transformations that begin with the forgotten, rusted drums, broken fans, even shattered electronics, and end as stunning works of summer art. Stay with us, because what we show you next might just change the way you see your backyard forever. Welcome to Arkan Aesthetic Studio, where we don't just decorate spaces, we reimagine what's possible. In today's episode, we dive into From Rust to Radiance, a journey through upcycled beauty, one unexpected item at a time. We've included timestamps so you can explore what speaks to you. And if something sparks your imagination, leave a comment. We read every single one. If this inspires you, take that spark and build your own version. You already have what you need to begin. Maybe I'm just a face on a screen, but behind this, there's a story and a small family holding onto a dream. This isn't just a video. It's a part of who we are. Every like, every share, every subscribe, it matters. You're not just growing a channel. You're helping a dream stay alive. Thank you for being here. Thank you for seeing us. One, vintage drum planters. It stands quietly in the garden, tall, round, and once forgotten. A drum that used to hold oil and time, now transformed by brushes and intention. Its surface tells a story in strokes of sky blue and butter yellow, softened with the moss of yesterday and kissed with wild blooms. Flowers burst from its brim like laughter on a summer breeze. Foxgloves reach up, proud and curious. Cosmos dance in the morning air, their petals light as memory. Sweet alyssum trails gently from the rim, perfuming the space around it with something between innocence and nostalgia. This is not just a planter. It is a monument to second chances. Where once there was grease, now there is dew. Where once there was function, now there is flourish. A gravel path leads to its base, bordered by lavender and thyme. A honeybee hovers for a moment, unsure if this bloom tower grew from soil or imagination. In the corner, a child picks strawberries beside it, unaware that beauty is often born from what others discard. And behind it all, the roses climb, not just a trellis, but a memory of something enduring. It does not ask to be noticed, but it's hard to look away. Two, paint can win chimes. Above a path of stone and thyme, the wind begins to sing. Not with instruments, but with forgotten things. Paint cans, empty, dented, rust-speckled, now wear coats of color. They dangle gently from twine-like notes on a page, their surfaces brushed with whimsy. One in coral dots, another in soft lavender stripes, another still in delicate floral motifs that catch the eye just long enough to spark a smile. They were silent once, lined up on garage shelves, echoing with the last drops of pigment. But now, in the hush of the afternoon sun, they tinkle with life. Their sounds are soft, uneven, tender, like laughter in a language the garden understands. The breeze threads through them carefully, tugging at their weight, releasing a scattered harmony that drifts through the air like petals. Bees pause, mid-flight. A child nearby looks up, eyes tracing the movement, not quite sure whether to listen or to dance. Behind them, tomato vines bend under summer's generosity. Along the fence, jasmine climbs, blooming slowly, like a secret being told. And still the chimes sing, not loudly, but clearly. They do not beg to be heard. But they are. Beauty lives here, not in perfection, but in the rhythm of things reimagined. Three, worn hose bloom arches. It was never meant to be beautiful. The hose was cracked, stiff with sun, frayed at the ends and faded from summers past. It curled in on itself, forgotten in the corner where weeds begin. But now, it arcs, bent into a graceful curve, fixed in place with time and care. It frames the garden like a gentle invitation. The hose, once only a vessel for water, now supports life in a different form. Sweet peas twirl upward in delicate spirals. Morning glories bloom in bursts of violet, their trumpets turned toward the light. Nasturtiums spill over in shades that match the fire of the sun itself. Beneath the arch, footsteps soften. Brick stones, worn by years, feel warm beneath bare soles. Around the base, chamomile whispers, marigolds glow, and mint releases its scent at every brush. The garden beyond seems to bloom with more intention, as though it understands it is being entered with reverence. This arch does not pretend to be new. Its lines are imperfect. Its story is visible. But that is its beauty. In bending what was broken, a threshold has been made, not just into the garden, but into another way of seeing. The hose, reclaimed and blooming, no longer hides. It leads. Four, bicycle rim flower trellis. Circles of steel once spun through streets, chasing wind and pavement. Now, they stand still, silent, weathered, yet reborn. Fixed into the soil and kissed by sunlight, the bicycle rims no longer carry motion, but memory. Through their spokes, roses rise. Petals press through the patterns like music through an open window. Blush and ivory blooms curl gently around the frame, their scent wrapping the air in sweetness no machine could ever produce. Rust clings to the metal like stories not quite forgotten. But instead of wear, it reads as character. These rims do not hide their past. They display it, proud and entwined with new life. The garden path curves gently beside them, scattered with dandelion fluff and stray flower heads. Bees hum through the spokes. A robin flits between the rims, pausing as if surprised by beauty in such a place. The garden accepts them not as relics, but as roots. What once spun forward now holds upward. There is grace in stillness, in giving shape to growth. The trellis rises not with sharp angles, but soft arcs, like questions never fully answered. In this space, between metal and bloom, the garden tells a quiet truth. Not all cycles end. Some simply begin again. Shall I move forward with number 5, Fan Blade Petalmundlers? Five, Fan Blade Petalmundlers. There was a time when these blades cut air, turned heat into hush, moved a room with quiet force. Now, they are still, but not silent. Arranged in circles, layered and softened with color, they become something unexpected, petals. Not born of soil, but of scrap. They stretch across the garden wall in careful symmetry, like a language spoken only in shape and light. Paint glides over metal, changing purpose into poetry. Coral melts into peach. Lavender fades to blue. Rust, once seen as flaw, becomes a vein of character, running like age through the body of each petal. They do not try to mimic real flowers. Instead, they offer an echo, a memory of bloom in a different tongue. Around them, real blossoms respond. Hollyhocks lean toward the wall as if to listen. Zinnias sway gently in approval. Ivy curls with quiet reverence at the edge of iron. In this space, art and nature don't compete, they collaborate. One grows from root, the other from reinvention. And together, they tell a story of stillness that moves, of objects that once whirled and hummed now transformed into meditations on beauty. These mandalas do not spin anymore, but somehow, they turn something within you. Six, wire mesh flower domes. They rise from the soil like gentle skeletons, delicate in their shape, yet strong in their intention. Bent wire, once discarded and tangled, now curved with purpose, offering quiet structure to something soft. The domes do not ask for attention. Instead, they invite it subtly, through the language of form. Clematis winds upward, tracing each arc like a whispered line of poetry. Sweet peas embrace the wire as if remembering something safe. Even the morning glories bloom a little slower here, uncoiling with grace. Each dome cradles its blossoms, guiding growth without force. What was once rough mesh now becomes a kind of shelter, a tender geometry holding petals instead of debris. Beneath them, time cushions the ground in fragrant humility. Lavender hums with bees. The earth feels full, but not crowded, as though each leaf and flower knows its place in the quiet rhythm of becoming. A breeze stirs the garden, and the wire glints gently in the light, catching memories of sky and season. They shimmer, not brightly, but honestly. This is the gift of wire reimagined. Not hidden, not polished, but softened by bloom. These domes speak of patience and rebirth. They do not dominate the garden. They complete it. Seven, Pastel Ladder Pot stands. It once reached ceilings, held paint and tools, leaned into labor with every scratch along its grain. But now, the ladder leans indifferently, towards sunlight, towards softness. Brushed in layers of pastel, the kind you see in dreams and faded memories, it stands not to climb, but to cradle. Each step is a shelf, each rung a gentle offering. Terracotta pots perch there like cups of color. Marigolds spill in golden flares. Lobelia trails in blue cascades. Dahlias sit like little bursts of fireworks, quietly celebratory. You can see where the wood once cracked, now filled with care. A chipped pot reveals its past, yet blooms without hesitation. Every detail feels touched, considered, held. At its base, time creeps outward like a green sigh. Strawberries peek from the edge, half-ripened and still warm from the sun. This is not a place of grand design. It is a patch of patience, a corner curated by time and tenderness. The wall behind it wears ivy-like lace. Bees drift by, curious but unhurried. There is no urgency here, only invitation. The ladder no longer reaches upward. It holds space. And in that holding, it teaches a quiet lesson. Even what once served utility can become something beautiful when given the chance to stand still and bloom. Eight, scrap metal bird buffet. The metal was never meant for grace. Bent, rusted, scattered, it once served machines, weight, and wear. But now, in the quiet heart of a blooming garden, it becomes something else entirely. Welded with care and a sense of wonder, the scraps rise in delicate defiance. A twisted bolt becomes a branch. A weathered washer, a perch. Tiny trays, once lids and fragments, now cradle seeds and fruit like offerings. Birds gather here without hesitation. A sparrow lands lightly on a rod. A finch tests the edge of a tray before dipping its beak into sunflower seeds. Their wings flicker like music around the sculpture, adding movement to its stillness. It does not shine, this metal tree. It glows, with story, with intention, with the rust of a past that's been repurposed, not erased. Around its base, calendula nods in the breeze. Echinacea stands tall, and the scent of basil floats gently from a nearby bed. A stone birdbath reflects the sky, and ivy drapes the fence like a curtain drawn back for a performance that never ends. Here, utility and elegance hold hands. What was once forgotten becomes the center of flight and song. The garden, in its quiet wisdom, has made space for the unwanted, and in return, received beauty. Nine, speaker box planters. Once, they carried sound. Deep bass, soft static, the murmur of voices and music long past. Now, these speakers are quiet, but far from silent. Stripped of wires, their hollow cores cradle life instead of echo. Green vines spill from their frames like melodies made visible. Bright begonias burst through compartments once filled with circuitry. Calouse leaves shimmer in summer tones, burgundy and chartreuse, softening the shape of the box with their velvet edges. They stand like guardians against the garden wall, no longer announcing anything, yet making a quiet statement of their own. Some still wear their knobs and mesh, reminders of who they were, and clues to who they've become. At their base, thyme and oregano breathe scent into the breeze. Above, clematis climbs with quiet determination, threading itself around corners and edges. The air is full of bees and birdsong, though no speaker plays a note. This is the kind of silence that speaks. Here, technology and earth exchange roles. Wires replaced by roots, signals by scent, rhythm by color. The speaker no longer transmits, but it receives sun, soil, rain, and the reverence of transformation. In the garden's orchestra, these boxes now hold a different kind of music, one that blooms, one that stays. Ten, Retro CPU Bonsai Pods. They once ran loud, fans whirring, circuits humming, wires pulsing with information. These machines were minds, encased in metal. Now, they are quiet sanctuaries. The CPU towers, emptied of code and memory, cradle life instead. In their open frames, roots sink into soil where motherboards used to lie. A single bonsai rises in each, deliberate and slow, shaped by time, not by programming. Their outer shells, repainted in calm tones, bear no logos, only soft scratches and the patina of past utility. But inside, something ancient unfolds. A green stillness that defies the modern pace. Moss creeps gently across the base. Stones rest in silence. The trees twist upward as if following a thought too sacred for language. They do not compute. They contemplate. Set among the ferns, beneath flowering vines, the bonsai pods whisper of harmony between what was made and what grows. They don't shout their transformation. They simply exist, present, balanced, alive. A breeze passes, rustling leaves instead of cables. Light moves slowly across their surfaces, catching a curve of bark here, a worn keyboard slot there. The world hums differently around them. No longer devices of speed, they've become vessels of pause. (11) TV frame mini greenhouses. They once broadcast the world, frames filled with flicker and sound, their glow a window to somewhere else. Now, their frames hold something real, something growing. The old televisions, stripped of static and circuitry, have been transformed into sanctuaries of green. Within their wooden shells, life unfurls. Mosses curl across stone. Tiny ferns reach like fragile hands toward the filtered light, and baby herbs whisper upward with the promise of fragrance. Where images once danced, now dew gathers. The screen, gone. In its place, breath and warmth. Some hold clear panes that catch the light like morning mist. Others remain open, allowing summer air to weave between leaves and roots. The knobs are still there, though they tune nothing now, except perhaps the tempo of the breeze or the hum of a bee nearby. These small greenhouses do not broadcast. They contain. And in that containment, they offer something fuller than fiction, presence. Set beneath a pergola laced with vines, surrounded by marigolds and phlox, they sit like relics made holy by soil and time. Not loud, not luminous, but endlessly alive. There is a strange magic in seeing nature through a man-made frame. It reminds us, when the screen goes dark, the real story begins. (12) Blooming bicycle planters. It once rushed down hills, carried laughter through streets, balanced baskets of bread and books. Now it rests, and in its stillness, something new has begun. The bicycle leans quietly against the garden wall, its frame no longer chasing speed but holding blooms instead. Rust clings to the spokes like sepia memories. The pedals don't turn, yet the whole thing seems to move, with color, with scent, with the gentle chaos of growth. In the front basket, zinnias burst like confetti. On the back, Ivy trails lazily over the rear wheel, dipping toward chamomile blossoms below. Terracotta pots cling to the frame, filled with mint that breathes freshness into the air and lavender that hums with bees. Each curve of the bicycle is softened by green. Each metal joint now cradles life. It is no longer a tool of travel, but a vessel of beauty, a sculpture that grows. Around it, the cobblestones wear moss like old velvet. Flower petals drift down like quiet applause. In this corner of the garden, where time no longer races, the past and present bloom together. What once moved the body now stirs the heart. A bicycle at rest. A garden in motion. Engine block herb beds. It once roared with fire and motion, powered roads and carried weight. Now, it cradles time and memory. The engine block, heavy and still, sits not in a garage but in the sun. Its chambers, once filled with oil and spark, now overflow with rosemary spires, sage softness, basil's wide and fragrant leaves. Each herb rises from iron, green against gray, soft against steel. A fine rust clings to the edges, like the patina of something not forgotten, only reimagined. Nasturtiums bloom beside it, their petals like orange flags waving gently over the metal. Borage lifts its blue stars toward the light. This is no ordinary herb bed. It is a contradiction made tender. Machinery meets growth. Heat meets healing. The scent that now rises is not exhaust, but the sweet green of food and flavor, of leaves brushed by fingers and remembered in dishes shared outdoors. Around it, the garden continues, tomatoes blushing on the vine, marigolds nodding in the breeze, the gravel warm beneath bare feet. Nothing about this scene rushes. Everything lingers. The engine no longer moves, but it nurtures. And in doing so, it becomes something greater than its former self, not a machine of motion, but a monument to renewal. Oversized Bolt Garden Sculptures. They lie heavy in the hand, these bolts, once tools of force, of construction, of weight. Now they rise from the soil like relics, weathered but not forgotten. Set among flowers, they take on a different power. Not to hold things together, but to stand as quiet witnesses to change. Moss creeps up their threads. Vines curl around their necks. They are no longer rigid or cold. They are softened by bloom. Stacked into totems or half-buried like ancient artifacts, each bolt becomes a marker in the garden's slow procession of time. Sunflowers lean nearby, tall and sun-drunk. Rudbeckia glows golden in the light. The bolts do not compete, they anchor. Their rust tells stories the petals cannot. Of pressure, of labor, of being essential and unseen. But now, under open sky and surrounded by scent, they are seen. Not for what they held together, but for what they've let go of. Birds perch briefly on their edges. Bees dart past without fear. Around them, everything grows. This is sculpture not made but found. Art created not through addition, but through placement, through patience. The bolts, left as they are, become beautiful, not in spite of their past, but because of it. 15. Colourpop Tin Can Totems. They clattered once in kitchen corners, held beans, tomatoes, maybe peaches. Now, they stand tall, no longer containers, but characters. Each tin can, painted with joy and imperfection, stacks atop the next like a song in color. Turquoise swirls into coral, lemon kisses magenta. Patterns bloom from the metal. Flowers, stars, bold stripes, traced by hand, not machine. Inside, life bursts. Pansies smile from above. Verbena trails with lazy elegance. Nasturtiums spill like laughter, their petals bright and edible. The cans hold them not with force, but with flair. Set upon stone, the tower catches the eye like a flag for the imaginative. Around it, lavender hums with bees. A butterfly lands briefly, unaware it has become part of an art piece. Nothing here is polished, everything here is alive. The totem does not pretend to be something else. It is proudly made from what once was discarded. And in that honesty, it charms. It stands not as decoration, but as celebration of reuse, of color, of the small triumphs that turn scrap into sculpture. The garden doesn't need grandeur. It needs play. And these cans, brushed in sunlight and story, give exactly that. (16) Shabashic door backdrops. It once welcomed footsteps, creaked open to voices, closed softly against wind. The door, now unhinged from its past, stands freely in a garden of growing things. Its surface is worn but beautiful, paint peeled by weather, corners softened by time. A touch of pale blue, a faded bloom of rose, the ghost of white across its frame. It wears its years like lace, fragile, layered, and full of memory. From the old brass knobs hang potted herbs and flowers, not arranged with symmetry, but with soul. Geraniums spill over their rims in joyful disarray. Lobelia drapes like delicate ribbons. Small metal tins hold sprigs of rosemary, thyme, and lemon balm, their fragrance curling into the air. The door is not a barrier now, it's a canvas. It does not divide. It invites. Against its wood, summer plays in soft light and shadow. Around its base, calendula glows gold beside mint's deep green sprawl. Behind it, hollyhocks rise like guardians, and hydrangeas bloom with the fullness of August. This door no longer leads to a house. It opens into something quieter, imagination, memory, beauty reclaimed. In a garden, where time slows and nature listens, even what once closed can become something that gently opens again. (17) Window frame herb walls. Once, this window opened to the world. Now, it opens to the earth. Set against a weathered wall, the frame stands empty of glass but full of life. Each pane, once a portal for light, now holds something green and growing. Jars dangle with parsley. Rusted tins cradle thyme. Little terracotta pots nestle basil and oregano, their roots clinging to the frame like memory. The wood bears time with elegance, its edges worn, its paint faded to softness. Pale sage and ivory speak not of neglect, but of knowing. This is not a thing thrown away. It is something found again, and gently repurposed. Around it, clematis twines upward, threading through empty spaces like poetry in motion. Morning glories open to greet the day. And below, moss presses against flat stones with a quiet tenderness that only gardens understand. Bees drift from flower to leaf. A breeze carries the scent of mint and damp wood. There is no rush here, only presence. This herb wall is not built for grandeur. It is made for noticing, for brushing fingers across leaves and recognizing their scent, for pausing, for remembering that the frame is never more important than what it holds. And now, it holds flavor. It holds life. Lead light bloom trails. They no longer shine in wires or blink with rhythm. Once strung across holidays and rooftops, these LED lights were cast aside, spent, silent, unlit. But in the garden, they begin again. Coiled gently along a worn path, the lights no longer pulse with electricity, they bloom. The tiny bulbs, now hand-painted in soft pastels, resemble petals caught mid-bloom. Spirals of wire curl between flowers, winding around stakes like vines with memory. A few twist upward into trellises, where cosmos and calendula grow freely, blurring the line between plant and plastic, past and present. What once illuminated synthetic spaces now becomes part of something deeply rooted, deeply alive. The garden accepts them without question. Sweet alyssum spills over their edges. Moss fills the spaces between their tangled cords. The path, worn and welcoming, curves through it all with the quiet certainty of a place that remembers every footstep. No longer powered by current, the lights find a different kind of glow, in the way they guide the eye, in how they reflect a morning sun, in the simple act of having been remade. Here, beauty is not always bright. Sometimes, it's soft. Sometimes, it's what remains when the light goes out and the flowers begin to grow. Remote control plant tags. They once controlled the channel, the volume, the flicker of distant rooms. Now, they rest in soil, not to command, but to name. The remotes, faded and finger-worn, stand among rows of herbs like odd little sentinels. Their buttons remain, silent and sun-bleached, but each casing now carries a new identity. Basil, thyme, lettuce, rosemary. Scrawled by hand, the names are imperfect, just like the tools themselves. Stuck gently into the earth or tied to slender bamboo poles, they bring humor and humanity to the neat precision of the raised beds. Around them, kale ruffles its violet leaves. Marigolds glow with golden persistence. Bees dart between blossoms, unconcerned with the strange signs below. They do not belong, and yet, they do. Their plastic is softened by time, by sunlight, by the tender absurdity of seeing a volume button nestled beside mint. This is the joy of reuse, where function fades and form finds new life. A child points and laughs. A gardener kneels, not to press but to water. What once operated machines now watches over growth. There is no signal here, no batteries, no code. Only roots, warmth, and rain. And in the garden, Even the most unlikely things can finally settle into stillness, into usefulness, into peace. "20 washer drum fire bowls." It once spun with speed and weight, rinsing, draining, tumbling in the rhythm of chores. But now, the drum holds fire, not water. Warmth, not work. Set low to the ground on a ring of bricks, the perforated steel breathes with embers. Each hole glows like a tiny constellation, pulsing softly as the flame rises and recedes. It crackles gently in the stillness of the garden, drawing people closer not to clean, but to gather. Around it, chairs wait. Nothing matches. One stool is painted, another carved, a bench made from pallet wood. But all face the same quiet center. The fire. The scent of marigolds mixes with ash. Lavender hums with bees just beyond the gravel ring. Herbs lean from their pots nearby, warmed by flame and sun. The light shifts across the old drum's surface, catching scratches and dents like echoes of its former life. No buttons, no cycles, no hum of machinery. Just the hush between words, the flick of flame, the presence of people drawn to something elemental. The washer drum no longer spins. It grounds. And in this transformation, it gives back more than it ever took. Heat, comfort, a place to pause. The machine is gone. The memory burns on. "21 bicycle chain garden edging." It once drove the wheel, link by link, mile by mile, pulling metal forward with every turn of the pedal. Now, the chain lies still, but it hasn't stopped moving. Laid in long curves beside flower beds, the bicycle chain becomes something unexpected. A line, a border, a rhythm grounded in soil. Its metal glints softly in the sun, not with shine, but with history. Rust clings to it like quiet proof of motion long ago. Each link wraps around the curve of a garden bed, pinched gently between rocks and tucked into soil. Snapdragons lean over its edge, nodding their pastel heads. Chives stand tall nearby, while zinnias glow in jewel tones just beyond the loops. It doesn't separate, it frames. It doesn't wall, it weaves. The chain guides the eye across color and texture, anchoring plants in place like punctuation around a poem. The path beside it crunches softly underfoot. A potting bench waits in the shade, tools resting from use. This place speaks not of speed, but of presence. And the chain, now still, reminds us of journeys, those behind and those just beginning. No longer racing, no longer resisting, the chain has found rest. And in that rest, it becomes beautiful. "22 printer case water planters." They once spit paper, blinked with light, hummed impatiently in the corner of a desk. Now, the printers are quiet, and the only thing they produce is peace. Gutted of ink and wire, the plastic frames rest gently beneath the shade. Where paper once passed through, now floats a lily leaf. Where buttons once beeped, Now bubbles rise, silent and slow. Water fills the shell, held not tightly, but carefully. A scattering of river stones line the bottom, softening its shape. Floating plants drift across the surface, water lettuce with bright green ruffles, duckweed spreading like a tiny constellation, papyrus rising thin and ancient. It's not a pond. It's not a machine. It's something between, a reflection pool made from memory and imagination. Beside it, moss thickens like velvet. Ferns arch over its corners, brushing against plastic now painted in the colors of stone and earth. A candle floats nearby, unlit but waiting. A frog perches on the rim, ceramic and still, watching the light dance. The printer no longer processes information. It cultivates calm. No ink, no noise, just a bowl of water under a sky full of green. Here, even the most rigid things can soften. Even the most unnatural forms can find balance. And even machines, once rushed and loud, can learn to hold stillness. "23. Mirror chip flower pillars. They broke once, shattered in silence. Fragments of mirrors, slivers of old CDS, pieces of discarded reflections. And yet, together, they rise. The flower pillars do not pretend to be perfect. Their surfaces are jagged, uneven, sharp with memory. But when the sun finds them, they shimmer. Each shard catches light differently, bending it, scattering it, painting fleeting rainbows onto the garden floor. At their base, cosmos sway and verbena glows in summer's warmth. Petals lean into the shimmer. Leaves tremble with it. And as you pass, the pieces reflect back not just flowers, but moments. A flicker of your face, a glimpse of the sky, a soft reminder that beauty is never still. The columns are quiet, but they speak. They whisper in flashes. A mosaic not of glass, but of survival. What was broken becomes whole again, not hidden but highlighted. They stand as monuments not to perfection, but to transformation. Around them, the garden blooms louder. The colors multiply in each mirrored edge. The world seems wider because it is being seen twice, from every angle. You do not glance at them. You see through them. Into the past, into the light, into the heart of what can be remade. "24. Exhaust pipe hanging pots. They once exhaled smoke and sound, roared through roads with heat and purpose. Now, they hang in stillness, echoing only with wind and bloom. The exhaust pipes, stripped of fuel and fury, float like strange instruments in the garden air. Suspended from old beams, they cradle soil and seed instead of smoke. From their hollow mouths, flowers spill, lobelia like falling sky, nasturtiums like coals cooled into color. Some are painted, others bare. Rust edges the steel like lace. What was once sharp and mechanical is now softened by green. The pipes no longer shout, they offer. Geraniums twist down their sides, reaching toward the herbs below. Mint brushes their shadows. The light that passes through the pergola dapples them in pattern and warmth. There's something haunting and lovely in their silence. As if they remember motion, but no longer need it. They are not repenting. They are simply becoming. Here, The garden doesn't ask what something was. It only accepts what it is. A vessel for life. A home for bloom. A piece of the past rethreaded into the present. In the quiet arc of metal and root, something beautiful hangs, deliberate, unlikely, and wholly alive. "25. Zinc roof pergola frames. The zinc once sheltered roofs, rattled by rain, baked in summer heat, overlooked and forgotten. Now, those same sheets float above a garden, held gently by hands that saw not scrap, but potential. Laid across a timber frame, the old zinc panels form a canopy that doesn't hide the sun, but filters it. Light pours through their ridges and rusted seams in soft bands, dappling leaves and benches below like watercolor. Vines climb toward them eagerly. Clematis threads itself between rust and shadow. Honeysuckle loops around the beams, scenting the air with sweetness. Passionflower unfurls strange and beautiful at the corners. The pergola does not boast symmetry or polish. Its wood is rough. The zinc wears its scars. And yet, in this combination of structure and softness, something quietly breathtaking emerges. Beneath it, a place to pause. A bench that remembers other gardens. Pots filled with rosemary, oregano, and thyme. The scent of herbs and sunlight becomes its own kind of music. Here, industry becomes intimacy. Metal and memory meet in the vines. And above it all, the zinc whispers, not of storms or storage, but of shelter reimagined. "26. Car wheel hanging baskets. They once spun through streets, carried weight and distance, wore the dust of highways. Now, they hang gently in the stillness of a garden, holding not rubber and speed, but flowers. The rims dangle with grace, their roundness softened by bloom. Suspended by rope and rust, they cradle soil like they were always meant to. Fuchsia spills downward in velvet bursts. Petunias trail like ribbons caught in wind. Alyssum tumbles over the edges with the lightness of breath. Each wheel, whether polished or weathered, tells a story. Some gleam faintly, their paint new and hopeful. Others remain raw, their patina kissed by rain and time. But all carry something they never did before, color that breathes, beauty that grows. Around them, the garden listens. Roses climb in the background, thorns and petals entwined. A path of uneven stone winds gently past, leading nowhere fast, just deeper into green, into quiet. These baskets don't spin now. They sway. They offer. And in that offering, they remind us, even what once moved without pause can stop and still be lovely, still be full, still hold life. "27. Rusty stove plant perches. It once held flame, boiled water, baked meals into memory. But now, the stove stands outside, no longer cooking, simply cradling life. Rust paints its corners in deep copper reds. The burners, once hot and hurried, now cool and calm, each coil supporting a different pot. One holds time, its leaves brushing the rim like quiet conversation. Another carries succulents, tightly wound, sunlit, and still. Marigolds blaze above the surface like sparks that never fade. Some parts are brushed in pastel, soft gestures of reinvention. Others are left bare, honoring what came before. The contrast is deliberate. The past is not hidden. It is held. Around its feet, mint creeps with intention. Time nestles in the cracks between stone. Nasturtiums curl around the frame like nature reclaiming something once mechanical. Nothing here tries too hard. Everything simply belongs. There's beauty in placing a stove among flowers, in letting the functional become ornamental, in allowing the hurried thing to rest. It no longer heats meals. It holds soil. And somehow, that too feels nourishing. This perch, once made for fire, now supports bloom. What it burns now is nothing. What it warms is everything. "28. Satellite dish succulent trays." It once searched the sky, reaching for signals, distant voices, invisible stories carried on air. Now, turned downward, it listens instead to the quiet rhythm of roots. The satellite dish, once aimed toward stars, cradles Earth instead. Within its shallow bowl, succulents bloom like constellations, perfect rosettes of echeveria, soft green spirals of sedum, and tiny cacti that sit like stars frozen in time. Between them, gravel gleams in the sun, scattered with smooth stones and driftwood, each piece chosen, placed, and allowed to rest. There is no broadcast here, no static, no noise. Around it, lavender sways with the breeze. Bees hum their approval. The dish does not dominate. It disappears into the garden, becoming a soft curve against bloom and bark. It doesn't ask to be noticed, but it catches the light just right, reflecting the world not in pixels, but in petals. Where once it pulled signals from the sky, now it gathers warmth from the soil. Its shape, unchanged, serves a different function. A quieter one, a more beautiful one. In a world obsessed with connection, the dish has found a simpler link, to water, to sun, to green things growing slowly. "29. Break Disc Garden Medallions." They once stopped motion, discs of pressure, heat, and control. But here, in a garden of color and time, they no longer halt. They reflect. The break discs rise quietly from the soil, spaced like punctuation marks along the edge of a bloom-heavy bed. Their metal is rough with rust, yet beautiful, bearing the quiet dignity of something aged, something useful, something remembered. Some wear painted patterns now, mandalas in gold and white that gleam in morning light, floral echoes drawn by steady hands. Others are left bare, letting weather and rain continue the artwork that time began. Flowers crowd around them. Coneflowers tilt their bold faces beside cold steel. Black-eyed Susans brighten every gap. Poppies lean with grace, softening the edges of what was once mechanical. And somehow, it fits. Each medallion catches the sun, not brightly, but enough to draw the eye. Enough to turn a glance into a pause. In their stillness, they become markers of transformation, of presence, of peace. What once held wheels now holds attention. What once stopped motion now invites reflection. In the garden, Even the tools of pressure can become expressions of release. USB cord macrame pot holders. They once connected us, devices to power, thoughts to screens, hands to the hum of machines. But now, the cords hang freely, woven not for function, but for feeling. The USB cables, frayed and forgotten, have been reimagined. Braided in loops and spirals, they cradle pots like hammocks in midair. Each twist is deliberate. Each knot, a gesture of patience. The colors remain, soft grays, faded blues, plastic whites now warmed by weather and purpose. Suspended from branches and beams, the holders sway slightly in the breeze, as if exhaling after years of tension. Within them, flowers bloom where data once passed. Fuchsia dangles like bells. Ivy trails down in green curls. Baby's breath hovers like mist, delicate and quiet. The pots they hold are mismatched, chipped, cherished. Beneath them, moss drinks light. Ferns lean into the moment. A stone bench waits nearby for someone to pause, to look up, to smile. This is what becomes of the disposable when met with care. A tangle turned tapestry. A wire turned wonder. The cords no longer power devices. They support life. In doing so, they remind us, connection isn't always digital. Sometimes, it's handmade, hanging between leaf and light. If this video meant something to you, please know that subscribing means the world to me. You're not just supporting content. You're supporting a dream that keeps my family going. Thank you, truly. I'd also love to hear from you. What did you enjoy the most? Is there anything I could do better to keep inspiring or simply entertaining you? Your feedback helps this channel grow with heart and purpose. Let me know in the comments. I read every one.